I'm Mac Reed, and I went to school from 1961 to 1964, and I have a BS in business, and my hometown was Ellis. I have been really very familiar with Fort Hays, you know, since the time I was a little kid. We used to come over here when I was young to go to the presentations over in the old Picken Auditorium. The theater was really quite, you know, pretty rickety as I remember it. And it was all the old brown seats, no color in the room at all. Beach Schmidt, you know, comparing the two, I mean, there's really no comparison, but nonetheless, I do remember a few of the musicals. A lady by the name of Harriet Ketchum was one of the early drama people here, and she was really a character, but she really did put on a lot of memorable productions here. I worked on the yearbook here at Fort Hays all 4 years. I was the yearbook editor in 1964, my last year here at Fort Hays, and we won the first All-American yearbook rating for Fort Hays. So I was really proud of that. I was going to the University of Denver to graduate library school, and I was in my apartment there, and the buzzer rang, and it was Western Union, and I just couldn't really figure out what it was. But the advisor here had sent me a telegram telling me that we had won the first All-American yearbook rating for Fort Hays. When I was going to college here at Fort Hays, I joined the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity when I was a sophomore. One of the really neat things back then was what we called the Greek Sing. And this was a competition between the sororities and the fraternities. We held this over in the old Sheridan Coliseum, and all the groups were dressed alike. It was a pretty formal thing. I played piano for the SIG-EP group all the time that I was in college, and then after that, and really the music that came out of these groups was really first rate, and I think that this would be a nice tradition to bring back. I played piano for the Impromptu group from 1961 through 1964, and this was a group of mainly non-music majors that was organized by music instructor Mary Maude Moore. We really did mainly Broadway show music and folk music, and we traveled all over Kansas performing, and then in 1962 Representative Bob Dole helped us get a tour to entertain the military in Iceland, Greenland, Newfoundland, and Labrador. We traveled in military transports. We went under the ice, in the ice tunnels up in Greenland to see how they do projects with wind and so on. These are mainly radar sites, and you know, some of them are very remote. The guys were really wanting entertainment, you know. The Impromptwos made actually, I think, 2 recordings. The one that I was involved with was the Impromptwos on campus, and then they had another one, and I was graduated and at the University of Denver when that one was done. You know, I myself had worked for 4 presidents from M.C. Cunningham through Hammond, and I started my professional career by being a reference librarian, or the reference librarian, and this was over in the old kind of classic reading room on the top floors of the well, it's called McCartney Hall now, but it was Forsyth Library and the museum at that point. It was really neat starting my library career there. When we moved over to the new Forsyth Library in 1967, in the basement here, it was just a great big vast area, and it was completely dirt. There was no concrete or anything in the basement, and down around, we do have an elevator in the building, and down around the elevator shaft in the basement, there was sort of a little caged off area with chicken wire and so on. And some of the audio-visual equipment from the university was stored down there. And the guy that was responsible for that was Ray Humans. He was sort of the person who was responsible for seeing that they had a movie projector and a screen, but a lot of it was stored down there. And in this cage, there was one single light bulb hanging from the ceiling there. And because we didn't really have any other room in some cases for teaching classes, some library classes and so on were taught down in that cage in the basement of the new Forsyth Library. In 1975, I volunteered to take over the government documents department. And so I served in that capacity to 2007. We used to get like 12 and 15 boxes of mail a week from the government. We could barely keep up back in that time with the mass of material. And of course now, about 99% of the government information is available full text online. So it is just completely different today than it was when I started back in 1975. The whole premise of the government document collections around the country was mainly to keep people informed, to make information that people needed in their daily lives available. These would be forms of one type or another, practical information, on how to do things, agriculturally or canning or, that type of thing back when that was really a big thing. And the Fortes Library would select items that we thought people around our area would be interested in and that could use. But a lot of it has been digitized now, and like the Annals of Congress, which went back into the 1770s, and that type of thing. We had the original ones up in this department upstairs. Some of them still may be up there, but they're marginal for the public. But yet they're the papers that brought the United States about, and from that standpoint, they really hold their value. We had been a government document depository library for 75 years, and we had what we call the superintendent of documents come from Washington, D.C. Jerry Moran, and maybe some of the other people were here, our congressmen. But then in 2002, due to the efforts of my boss, John Ross, and President Hammond, my government documents department was named to my honor, and I feel really good about that, and I appreciate that.